Hello and welcome back to the fourth and final part of Rewriting The Walking Dead Season 10. Where we left off, the survivors managed to defeat the Whisperers, but at a high cost. All the communities were destroyed and many survivors lost their lives, including Jesus and Lydia, just to name a few. And this is where we'll begin in part 4 with the immediate aftermath of the Whisperer War. And as always, make sure to go and watch the previous videos to properly understand the story so far. So now let's jump right into Part 4. Episode 13 begins with yet another funeral. This time, everyone gathers around in the ruins of Alexandria to say goodbye and pay their respects to Jesus. Later that day, the leaders gather. Andrea, Gabriel, Maggie and Alden are talking about what to do next. Gabriel leads the conversation by talking about the lack of food. Maggie tries to take over, but Gabriel shuts her down and shows frustration about her bringing more mouths to feed, but quickly apologizes. Maggie then says, I might know where some food is. We used to have some caches out there, maybe some still exist. Gabriel then thanks Maggie for the information and talks about maybe setting up some expeditions to try and find them. Andrea then asks, what should we do about the saviors? It's been a whole day and no sign of any of them. If it's okay, I would like to go out to the sanctuary and try and see if any of them survived. Maggie then scoffs at the idea, but Gabriel steps in and tells Andrea it's a good idea to see if Daryl is alive, seemingly making a point to Maggie that the saviors are not the villains that they used to be. The group then prepare to leave, and Andrea, Carl, Connie and Alden get ready to go to the sanctuary, while Gabriel, Cole and Elijah get ready to go out and try and find Maggie's caches. However, as they're about to leave, Aaron runs over and asks if he can join the group. Gabriel was hesitant at first, but Aaron says that he just wants to do something and does not want to sit around and feel helpless all day. Gabriel then reluctantly agrees, and the group then split up into two to cover more ground. Moving over to West Virginia, and Eugene, Ezekiel and Yumiko continue travelling west. The group come to a spot and stop for some rest. Ezekiel then starts to struggle to breathe, while Eugene tries to rush everyone, but Yumiko glares at him, scaring Eugene to the spot. Ezekiel's wheezing then alerts some nearby walkers, and they attack. Ezekiel struggles to kill them as he is barely able to breathe, and Eugene is forced to save him. The group then find Ezekiel's horse was not tied down and ran off. Ezekiel feels hopeless and falls to the floor. He tells everyone, go, leave me. I'm sorry I slowed you down. I should have never have come. Yumiko gets on her knees and tells Ezekiel, no, we are not going without you. We're not leaving you. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. This is not what Michonne wanted for you. Do not give up. And then she grabs Ezekiel and then pulls him to his feet and ushers him to a horse so they can carry on. Over with Andrea, Alden, Carl and Connie, and they make it to the sanctuary and see that it is in ruins. The fences are gone and the main entrance is blocked. The group are forced to go around to the back entrance, where inside it is filled with dead from the horde and dead saviors. The group clear the walkers, looking around for any survivors. Deeper into the sanctuary, and Connie finds Daryl's crossbow left on the floor and fears for the worst. Carl then calls out, we got a live one here, and from another room he pulls out a savior, very injured but barely alive. Everyone then regroups with Carl to try and save the injured savior. Andrea asks about Kelly and Daryl, but he does not know anything. Alden says that he will stay with the man and treat him, while the others go further into the sanctuary. Out with Aaron and Gabriel, and the two men are going to point looking for Maggie's stash, but nothing is found. Most of the day is gone now, and Gabriel, looking up at a water tower, says one more. However, Aaron does not respond, and Gabriel asks, are you going to talk at all today, or shall I keep talking to myself? Aaron looks back at Gabriel and finally breaks the silence. Can we just do what we came out here for? I'm not out here to talk, Gabriel. Gabriel then says, fine, there is one more of Maggie's stashes nearby. Let's go find it before it gets too dark. The two then continue on to a warehouse with some walkers outside. Aaron and Gabriel kill the walkers with ease and enter the building to see more walkers, and the place is mostly ransacked. They clear the walkers to find little left, a bottle of whiskey and some cans of Spam. Both feel defeated after a day of nothing, and Aaron goes for the exit carelessly. But upon slamming the door open, Aaron sets off an alarm, alerting a small horde of walkers to the building. The walkers soon become too much for the two, and they are forced to run back to the warehouse and hide inside the building. Once inside and barricade up the doors, Gabriel tells Aaron we should hide in here until the walkers dissipate, as he sets up a chair to get comfortable. Over with Eugene, Yumiko and Ezekiel, and they enter Charleston, West Virginia. The city is in ruins and the group struggle to travel through it. They soon come across some walkers, but they are tied down and dressed up in a cafe, looking like they are having a tea party. Yumiko is slightly unsettled, but Ezekiel sees the humour and bursts out laughing and goes into a coughing fit. The group then gets startled by a "hi," and they turn around to see a woman shouting at them from across the street in a bright pink fluffy coat. She then excitedly shouts, "Oh my god, people, wait, are you real? Tell me something I don't know." Eugene, confused, spurts out some random facts about trains before being cut off halfway through when she goes, "Oh my god, boring. Well, great, you're real. Well, my name is Princess." Ezekiel then introduces everyone to Princess, but as he introduces himself, he stops himself from saying King. Eugene then asks Princess, "Can you help us get through the city?" Princess shouts, "Sure," as walkers come around the corner. She says, "Let me deal with this for you," and then unloads her entire magazine at the walkers. She then throws the gun on the floor and turns back to see Eugene and everyone chasing after the horses as they run away. Princess shouts sorry before quickly turning around and moving on. She then shouts, "Well, let's get going, my friends." Eugene, Ezekiel and Yumiko share puzzled glances at each other but decide to follow her as they have no other choice. Eugene then walks alongside Princess and asks, "What about our horses?" Princess tells him they won't make it there. There's only one way through the city after the fall, and I know it. The group soon get to an old building in the city centre, and there's rubble everywhere. Some buildings are ruined and some are just straight up collapsed. Princess then moves some rubble and shouts, "We go through here." Yumiko says it is not safe. Are you crazy? And Princess explains it's the only way through the city and the only other way is to go around the whole city. Eugene, hearing this, looks back at the hole and gets down and quickly scurries through it. Yumiko tries to stop him, but can't, and Princess soon follows, shouting, "You are my favourite now." Yumiko, realising she can't stop him, reluctantly follows with Ezekiel by her side. Inside the building, and it is almost pitch black, and Princess walks into the darkness without a care, until halfway through she suddenly stops, and she shouts, "Oh no, I'm lost." Yumiko then face palms, and we cut over to the sanctuary, and Connie, Carl and Andrea manage to get to the main factory floor, and it is filled with the dead. Seeing the dead makes Andrew believe that all hope is lost. But Connie goes in, not giving up, and she tries to kill as many dead as possible to see if Daryl and Kelly are among the dead. Andrea and Carl then join in, and the three use the stairs to funnel the walkers. Soon they manage to kill them all off, but still no sight of them. Andrea then falls exhausted to the floor, while Connie continues on the search. After a while, on the far side of the room, Connie finds some scuff marks. She realises that there is a false wall here and calls for Carl and Andrea to come help her open it. The three work together to open it, and it reveals a secret room with some saviours in it, as well as Kelly and Daryl. Connie then rushes in and hugs them both, thankful that they are alive. Daryl, overjoyed that Connie is alive, then suddenly kisses her and signs to her how much he missed her. Andrea and Carl then help the remaining saviours out, and back with Aaron and Gabriel, and they are still waiting for the walkers to leave. Gabriel then sets up a table and prepares a meal. Aaron sits down and Gabriel pours out some whiskey. Aaron says, "Is that it?" And Gabriel explains yes, because of how rare it is, and they need to savour it and drink it very slowly. They both then take a sip and start to eat. Soon Aaron starts to ask for more whiskey and tries to reason it as he's had a rough day, maybe one more. Gabriel thinks about it and says, "Okay, one more," and then pours it out. However, it is not just one more, and soon the bottle is gone, and Aaron and Gabriel are now drunk, sitting on their chairs, looking up at the roof. Aaron tells Gabriel
Thank you. I really needed this. I really messed up with Jesus. We wasted so much time instead of just being happy together. Gabriel tells Aaron to not think about the moments they could have had, but focus on the moments that they had. Gabriel comforts Aaron and tells him to remember Jesus for his life, not his death, and focus on what they had together.
Aaron turns to Gabriel and asks, how are you so good at this? And Gabriel says, I learnt it from my old mentor, and talks about his first day at work and how he was at a boy's funeral and that the mentor rushed to the wake to be there before everyone so that he could comfort everyone and the father. And that is really what it is all about. Aaron tells Gabriel, you need to start preaching again. Gabriel then quickly replies with, no, I don't want to. When he is asked why, Gabriel goes off on one and says that the world is not what it was, and now everything is evil, and maybe God is now gone. Evil used to be the exception, but now it is the norm. Aaron then gets up and mumbles something under his breath before walking off to the other side of the warehouse. The next day, and the walkers are now gone, and Aaron and Gabriel both have massive hangovers. As they leave the warehouse, the car park is nearly empty, but with one lone walker. Aaron stumbles over and kills the military walker and finds a map on it. Aaron then remembers the conversation from last night and shouts, hey Gabe, look, maybe there is some hope in this world, and shows the map. Over at the sanctuary, and everyone is getting ready to leave and head back to Alexandria. Andrea is going around and making sure that everyone is ready. Daryl asks Andrea how many survivors, and Andrea tells Daryl, sorry, only about 18. Over with Kelly and Connie, and Kelly signs, how did you survive? Connie explains that when the cave collapsed, she used a mask from one of the dead whisperers to hide in the horde until Andrea eventually found her. Kelly then asks about what happened with Daryl inside, and Connie smiles and signs to Kelly that she'll tell her about it later. The group then set off back to Alexandria, leaving the ruins of the sanctuary behind them. Back in Charleston, and some time has now passed, and the day is breaking. Eugene, Ezekiel, and Yumiko have been stuck in the dark, waiting for Princess to remember where to go next. Eugene starts to feel hopeless, and Yumiko sees this and goes over to Princess and says, choose now. Princess is confused, but Yumiko threatens her. Princess, now intimidated, picks, and the group eventually stumble out of the darkness and into the light. Upon the exit, however, Princess becomes a lot less chatty as they head towards the station. The episode ends with Eugene, Princess, and Yumiko getting to the station, but it is empty. Eugene collapses with exhaustion and is defeated. Yumiko tries to tell Eugene maybe they are late, but Eugene says no, we are. Everyone then turns around at Princess, who seems very jittery and eager to go. Princess tells everyone, well, no one's here, let's get going, and starts to walk off. Yumiko then grabs Princess and asks, why are you in such a rush? Princess starts to panic and pulls away, but it is too late. Troops then pour out from everywhere and surround the group. The episode ends with our group being told, hands up. Episode 14 begins with Maggie, Alden, and Herschel walking through Alexandria saying good morning to the people they walk by. However, the good mornings suddenly stop as soon as Maggie sees Negan working on the walls. She then turns the group around and they start to walk back the way they came. Later, Carl is called into community hall, and as he enters, Maggie leaves with a pleased look on her face. Carl then walks up to Gabriel and Andrea, who are the only remaining leaders at this time. Carl says, what was that about? And Gabriel says, Negan. Gabriel then takes a seat and sighs. Gabriel then looks up at Carl and says, I'm sorry, Carl, but you can't stay here. Tomorrow, you and Negan have to go. Andrea, outraged, screams, what? You cannot do this. But then Gabriel snaps and says, yes, I can, Andrea. You were not here. You did not see the destruction and death Carl caused. Many people blame Carl for the war, or at best, making it worse. Andrea becomes lost for words as Gabriel continues with, I have had it up to here. The other day, I found people openly talking about leaving and stealing what is left. Morale is low, and Carl and Negan being here is making everything worse. People want them gone. Gabriel then leaves and says, "Gate tomorrow," on his way out. Andrea then runs to Carl, holding him tight and crying, while Carl stands there in shock. The next morning at the gate, Carl and Negan prepare to leave. Andrea and Judith say their tearful goodbyes to Carl, and both hold Carl tight. Andrea then gives Carl some of her rations, and then Judith then hugs Negan and asks him, "Will you look after my brother?" while wiping away her tears. Negan then gets down on his knees and tells Judith that he will look after her, do not worry. Carl and Negan then grab their bags and leave Alexandria. Later, after a long day of walking, Carl and Negan come across a small cabin to stay the night. The two then eat some of the rations and not much is said. Carl then soon calls it for the night and walks to the other room, leaving Negan alone by the fire. Negan then reaches down into his bag and pulls out what is left of Lucille. He looks down at the bat, sad of the man he has become. Cut back to 2011 and Negan is tied up, surrounded by bikers, want to know where he got the meds. Negan begs them to let him go because his wife has cancer and he needs to get back before it is too late. However, the bikers do not care and continue to beat Negan. Eventually, Negan gives in and tells them that he got them from a doctor's in an RV that he's been tracking for weeks. Flashback again, and Negan is running through the woods, disorientated and dehydrated. He sees the RV and runs up with a gun, ordering everyone to drop their weapons. The doctor tries to calm Negan down, but Negan starts to look around, confused that the guards are not moving. He then realizes that they are fake. The doctor then says, "No, wait," and then Negan is knocked out by Dwight. Negan then wakes up in the RV, handcuffed and attached to an IV drip. The doctor then asks, "Who are you?" and Negan replies with Negan. The doctor then uncuffs Negan to Dwight's dismay and feeds him. Negan then starts to eat, while the doctor introduces himself as Franklin and asks what is he doing out here. Negan explains that his wife has cancer and he needs to find some treatment to save her. Franklin and Dwight sit and then listen to Negan's story. Flashback another 6 weeks and Negan is living an almost ordinary life post-fall as he is cleaning the dishes and administering treatment to his sick wife Lucille. As Negan goes about his day, a walker continuously bangs on the wall. Even with the generator switched off, it stays, bothering Negan as he tries to ignore it and reads a book to his wife, but it gets louder. Negan then stands up in anger as Lucille tells him it will go away, don't worry. Negan ignores her and walks to the door and grabs a knife, ignoring her pleas to stay inside. Outside, Negan sees the walker and approaches it timidly, but soon the walker grabs Negan and Negan almost falls. He then hears Lucille calling from him at the door and Negan gets the thought of what if he dies and leaves her alone. He is then overcome with emotion and knocks the walker down, beating it until it stops moving. Lucille then comes around the corner and Negan's demeanour changes completely from aggressive to gentle and caring. He then takes her by the hand and takes Lucille back to bed. In bed, she asks him how much fuel is left and you can't stay here forever. Negan says, "Don't worry, we have enough and there's only 3 treatments left and then we can go anywhere you want to go, okay?" Later in the night, as Lucille struggles to sleep, Negan then holds her tight and sings "You Are So Beautiful" to her. The days then pass and Negan and Lucille go on with their lives. One day messing around with wigs, another day playing darts and board games. All while Lucille is having her treatment. Later that night a walker comes back on the walls and Lucille says, "Damn it." Negan's demeanour then changes and Lucille sees the discomfort Negan gets from killing the dead and grabs Negan's hand and says, "Don't worry, we can turn off the generator and it will go away." Negan then agrees and the two get ready for dinner. During dinner, Lucille says happy anniversary and hands Negan a bag. Negan is shocked and says, "You know what day it is?" and he pulls out the leather jacket. Lucille says that she was so mad that she could not return it. "So I hid it from you," and in shock, Negan says, "I don't deserve this from you. I am so sorry, Lucille, for what I have done to you." The two then share a moment and then go to bed early. The next morning, Negan wakes up and remembers the generator is off. He rushes over to the fridge to find out all the medicine is ruined. Negan immediately goes into planning mode, but Lucille tells Negan to stop, it is over. I have something to tell you. Flashback again to July 2010, as Lucille finds out about the jacket and is pissed with Negan, and the two are having problems after his suspension from work. Later that night, Lucille talks to Negan about her doctor's appointment and asks if he can come with him, but Negan says he can't, and Lucille has to go alone the next day as she finds out she has cancer. In the car, she tries to call Negan but can't. She then calls the probation officer, but Negan is not there. She then goes home and realises that Negan is having an affair. At home, she waits for Negan to come home with a gun, but just before she decides to kill him, she changes her mind and decides to tell him about the cancer. Cut back, and Negan's distraught by the fact that Lucille knew this whole time. Negan tells her, as soon as we got the diagnosis, I cut things off of her. I am so sorry. Lucille says, I know, and I want you to know you made up for it. So stay. Negan argues that he has to go and he has to save her. He'll be back soon. Lucille grabs his hand and pleads for him to stay, but Negan says no, you can't give up. He stands up and grabs the knife and a nearby bag. He then kisses Lucille on the head and says his goodbyes. Cut back to the RV and Negan finishes his story. The door then opens up and Sherry walks in and says, here, we had it all, and puts down a cooler filled with medication for Lucille. Negan's helped to his feet confused, but Franklin said, I found your note. Outside, as Franklin says his goodbyes to Negan, Dwight walks over and says be careful at night, and hands back a now loaded gun. Dwight then picks up a bat and says, take this too, you'll need it. Negan then grabs the bat and looks down at it and says, wow, you pack quite a hit. Cut back to Negan tied up in the diner from the start. The biker is starting to get annoyed at Negan just constantly talking nonsense. The biker then stands up and holds a gun to Negan, forcing him to give up the location of the RV. Negan is then untied and thrown into a cupboard while the bikers leave to go find the RV. Later, Negan is let out as the bikers return, and outside he sees Dwight and Sherry in the RV screaming. Negan then finally gets home to find it silent and dark. As he walks into the basement, he finds that Lucille has taken her life. Lucille then lunges at him, and Negan pushes her back before running to the door and locking her in the basement. He then collapses to the floor, heartbroken and crying. Negan then pulls the gun out of his pocket and puts it to his head. Negan says, I'm sorry, and pulls the trigger, but nothing happens. He looks at the gun and finds out the bikers have emptied it, taking all the ammo. Negan, unable to put her down, leaves her in the basement and barricades the door as Lucille bangs on the other side. Even in death, he could not lay a finger on her. He then leaves the house with his leather jacket and uses the fence to wire up the bat, and then rides out, back with the bikers, and two are dragging Dwight out the back to put him down. Dwight tries to fight but is injured. As the guys bring the gun to Dwight's head, Negan comes out and starts to attack the bikers. This causes confusion and gives Dwight the chance to attack the guards, and the two team up to take out each guard one by one. Negan faces little trouble now that he is no longer holding back, and Dwight goes for the RV to save Sherry and the others. Negan then enters the building to kill the leader and save Franklin. He shoots the guards and then the leader in the knee. Franklin is freed and runs off to Dwight. Negan then stands over the biker and tells him how he lost his wife and how he originally lost his job because he saw red and almost killed a man. In the old world, that was a problem, but now there are no consequences. And now it is only about how capable are you. Negan then pulls the bat back, ready to swing, and says, I think I can do damn near anything. And cut back to Negan in the shack, looking down at the bat. Negan then puts Lucille in the fire and says, I'm sorry. He then sits there until the next morning as Carl comes out to see Negan still at the fireplace. Carl asks, "Are you ready to go?" And Negan gets up and says, "Yes, can we do something first?" The two then walk to Negan's old house. Carl says, "What are we doing here?" Negan replies, "I need to put my wife to rest. Can you help me?" The two then walk inside to see the basement door still barricaded. Negan then takes a moment before walking in to see Lucille in the corner, rotting away, now barely able to move. Negan, with tears in his eyes, gets down on his knees and puts her down. The episode ends with Carl and Negan burying Lucille, and Negan says some final words. "I'm sorry I left you, Lucille. I'm sorry I named a bat after you. I'm so ashamed for what I have done and what I did to you. I'm sorry I left you and what I put you through. I miss you so much, and I'm going to do your fighting for you." Negan then gets up and the two then walk away. End of the episode and the season, and that is where we'll leave it today, with our community now on the brink of starvation and having to go back to the basics, and with the sad note of Carl and Negan being exiled. So goodbye, peace out, I'll see you next time in season 11.